Prepositions in general are pretty easy to confuse. For some of you, part of the problem is that with these prepositions, you're thinking about the way that you use them in your own language, not how they're used in English, and it can be different. For example, Spanish and Portuguese speakers often use the preposition en, where in English we use both on and in, two separate words with very different uses in English. So part of the challenge when you're learning is understanding how to use them separately in English and what the difference is, when to use one or the other. Some languages don't really rely on prepositions much at all. I mean, sometimes English prepositions don't have a lot of logic to them. They don't always make sense. And for all of these reasons, English prepositions must be learned and practiced in context with other words. So we won't focus too much on each individual preposition in this lesson. We'll look at words that they're often used with. Oh, and just before we get started, you might be interested in some of the other lessons that I've made about prepositions. My playlist's up there. I've made lessons about in, on, at, by, lots of other prepositions. But back to these two prepositions we're talking about today. Sometimes using the wrong preposition doesn't affect the meaning of your sentence too much. Native speakers will recognize the mistake, but they probably won't correct you on it because they'll still understand you. But with these two prepositions, they can often be used in place of each other, and sometimes the meaning completely changes. So here's what I'm going to do in this lesson. I'm going to talk about the uses of to, I'm going to talk about the uses of for, and then I'm going to talk about the times when you could use either to or for. And that's where things get a little confusing. Make sure you stick around until the end of the lesson because later on I'm going to teach you some common word collocations using to and for, so you can stop guessing which one you need to use and just know which is the right one. And before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel just by clicking that red button down there so that you can keep up to date with what's happening. Okay, let's start. When should you use the preposition to? So you can use to when there is some kind of movement from one place to another. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't only relate to physical movement and action. It can also relate to other types of movement. We can use to when there's some kind of transfer happening or something is being moved from one place to another. A destination. Something is being moved to somewhere or something, right? Do you usually take the bus to work? So there's movement, of course, in the direction to work. The destination is work. Now, I'm going to give you a few other examples, and I want you to pay attention to the destination or the direction being described in each one. If you're feeling sick, you should talk to a doctor. Can you quickly run to the shops? They invited us to their house for dinner. Now, if you're talking about distance, you should also use to, since distance is the length or the time from one place to another, to a destination. It's only 6 kilometers from my house to the office. Now, we also use to when we're talking about time and the amount of time between 2 points in time. Of course, we use it when telling the time. Right? It's 7:15. It's 5 minutes to 8. When we're talking about one point in time to another point in time, we can also use to. The supermarket is open from 9 to 7 p.m. I study English Monday to Thursday every week. From this time to that time. So this is a period from this time to that time. That's the direction. That's the movement. Now, if there are two things and you'd like one of those things a little more than the other, you prefer it, right? You prefer one thing to the other. I prefer chocolate ice cream to vanilla ice cream. I like chocolate ice cream more than vanilla. It's way better, obviously. And I would rather have chocolate ice cream. He prefers riding his bike to walking. Do you prefer tea to coffee? Not me. I love coffee. Okay, what about you now? I want you to tell me about some of your preferences in the comments below. So make sure you're comparing two things and that you're using the preposition to. I prefer summer to winter, for example. Add it to the comments. Now, we can also use to talk about the point where something finishes or ends. It's the limit that you can't go past. During the flood, the water came to my knees. So in this situation, talking about limits, you may also hear the phrasal verb up to. The water came up to my knees. The tickets could cost up to $200 each during the high season. Okay, I want to check you've been paying attention. Okay, time for a quick quiz. What are the 4 different situations where we commonly see the preposition to being used? The 4 situations that I just talked about. Write them in the comments. Quickly, you've got 10 seconds. Direction or destination. Time, the time between 2 points. Preference, and the limit or the end point of something, right? Nice. Let's check out what for is used for now. So we can talk about benefits using for, the positive effects or results of something. So we can use for. For example, one of the benefits of eating ginger is that it helps your immune system. So ginger is great for your immune system. Exercising every day is good for your health, right? That's a benefit. We also use for to talk about time. We use it when we're doing something over a period of time. So when something has happened for a number of hours, days, weeks, months, years, you get the idea, right? We do something for a duration, a period of time. They've been living in the city for 3 years already. How long have you been studying medicine for? I've been waiting for 20 minutes already. Where are you? Wait a second. Notice how all of those examples are using the perfect tense? For is often used when talking about time in this way. You can actually check the lesson that I made about the present perfect tense and using for and since right here. I'll link to it at the end of this lesson as well, so you can keep watching this one now. If you do something to help someone out or do something nice, then you are doing something for them. I baked a cake for my sister. I need to collect the mail for my grandma. Hey, can you grab those boxes for me? You'll see from these examples that this is an important one to know so that you can ask someone for a favor. Can you please do something for me? This is a helpful phrase, right? A helpful one to know. It's a really common expression. Can you help me? Can you do something for me? What's this thing's purpose? What's its function? What's it used for? Well, it's used for drinking and filling up with water. Remember that we use for when we're talking about a function or a use. We use the form for plus verb ing. What is it used for? it's used for